Hello, my name's Jonathan, and I have a question for you. Is there a difference between cheap and inexpensive? For example, I bought a cheap watch, I bought an inexpensive watch. Is there a difference? I will answer that. I will answer that question shortly. First, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jonathan. I am an American. I grew up in Minnesota. I went to university in Minnesota where I received a Bachelor of Science degree in teaching English. So I'm qualified to teach English in the US. And in fact, I did teach in the US for a couple of years, then went to uh, Japan, where I taught for 2 years English as a second language. I returned to the States where I worked for another 8 or 10 years teaching children ages 9 to 13. And then I was just so fed up with the public school system that I stayed away from teaching for a decade or so. In 2011, I moved to Odessa, Ukraine, and I've lived in Ukraine ever since. I've been teaching English as a second language for the past 8 years. So, I have the educational background to be an excellent teacher. I graduated cum laude and am a member of Mensa, if either of those mean anything to you. Cum laude means I graduated with honors. I I have the training, the educational background to be a top-notch teacher, but I also have over 20 years of teaching experience, 10 in the US, more than 10 in the US, more than 10 outside of the US. Now, when I was at university, one of my professors asked us to think back and choose one teacher that we remember fondly, a teacher who made a strong impression on us. And we all had to do that and then give a little presentation about why we chose that particular teacher. In my case, I chose Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones was a sixth grade teacher, and he selected me along with four other boys who were very smart and very good at math. And he said, "You five, you work separate from the class. You don't need my instruction. You are smart enough to do the math by yourself." And the five of us went through the sixth grade and the seventh grade math book in the same amount of time that the regular class went through the sixth grade book. So Mr. Jones recognized that we were special, that we were smart, that we were competent, and we could learn on our own. And I will never forget Mr. Jones because of that. And the other students had similar stories about the teachers that they remembered. And our professor said, "Isn't it interesting that none of you said that your favorite teacher was the smartest one or the teacher with the most experience? You all selected a teacher based on a personal connection. They inspired you. They recognized something special about you. They opened your eyes. They opened up the world to you. They changed your life." Okay? Now, I began this video by stating my qualifications, why I believe anyone would benefit from my instructions. Now, the rest of this tape will just be a mini lesson so you can see my teaching style, to see if you connect with me, if you would like to take classes with me. Okay, so let's get back to the original question. Is there a difference between cheap and inexpensive? All right, to answer this question, I need to make sure that you know two words. One is denotation, one is connotation. All right, the denotation of a word is the dictionary meaning of the word, what it literally means. The denotation of cheap and inexpensive is very similar. They didn't cost much money. This watch did not cost very much money. It's cheap, it's inexpensive. They mean the same thing. Denotation means the same thing. But the connotation is the emotions, the feelings, the sensation that we get when we hear a word. All right? Inexpensive has positive connotations because it means it did not cost very much money. And it's as good as something that cost more money. Cheap has negative connotations because if something is cheap, yeah, it didn't cost very much money, but it's not very good. All right, so if I have a cheap watch, it might last a year or two, but it might lose a few minutes every day. It might just break. If I have an inexpensive watch, that just means I didn't spend much money on it, but it's still a good watch. It's still quality. So the denotation is roughly the same, but the connotation is very, very different. This is recognized by native speakers. Every native speaker knows that inexpensive is better than cheap. All right, let me give you another example. Skinny, slim, and thin. Okay, they all describe body types. All right. They mean someone smaller than me, who has a smaller belly than I do. But if you ask any native speaker about those three words, everyone could put them in order from best to worst. The meaning, the denotation is very similar: skinny, thin, slim. But every native speaker will say, oh, don't call me skinny, don't call me thin, call me slim. Slim is the best. It's all positive connotations. The middle word is thin. Thin means you could probably gain a couple of kilograms and you'd still look good. You'd probably look a little better. And skinny is by far the worst. Okay, if you see a skinny dog or a skinny cat, you feel bad for it. You want to give it some food. It's just, you can see the bones. All right, so these examples, skinny, slim, thin, cheap and inexpensive, these have similar denotations, but connotations which are clear to the native speaker. We know which is the best and we know which is the worst. Now, other words have personal connotations. All right, for example, a book. Everybody knows what a book is. This is the book I'm reading right now. If you tell me that you got a Christmas present for me and it's a book, I'm thrilled. I love books. Books are fabulous. Books are my favorite hobby. All right, but someone else, you say, hey, I got you a Christmas present, I got you a book. And they go, oh, Jesus, a book. Why didn't you get me a sweater or a pair of socks? At least they're useful. The book is just going to sit there. All right, so book to me has positive connotations. Book to this imaginary person has negative connotations. So sometimes connotations are individual, personalized. Other times they're determined by society. Slim, thin, skinny. Inexpensive, cheap. All right, let me give you a couple more examples. College and university. All right. Do they mean the same thing? Do they have the same denotation? Yes, they do. They both mean some school that you attended after graduating from high school. But universities are generally larger, and most people have more positive connotations with the word university. Okay, the denotation's the same, but connotation, university just sounds a little better than college. A college might be very small. It might have only a few hundred students, but a university is much larger. It can have thousands and thousands of students. All right, so the denotation is very similar, but the connotation is different. All right, another example. All right, let's say that your car is broken. All right, do you take your car? You have a Honda. All right, your Honda is broken. Do you take your car to an expert or a specialist? A Honda specialist. Is there a difference? In this case, they both have positive connotations. An expert sounds good, a specialist sounds good. So they both have positive connotations, but the denotation is different. An expert is very, very good at what he or she does. A specialist, for example, so an expert mechanic can probably fix any kind of car you bring in. A specialist focuses just on one field. In this example, a mechanic who only works on Hondas is a Honda specialist. All right, so you got your broken Honda. You could take it to an expert or you could take it to a Honda specialist. Sounds equal, but it's not. You take it to the expert. A Honda specialist, all that means is that he only works on Hondas. He doesn't work on BMWs. He doesn't work on Chevys. It doesn't mean he's good. It just means that's what he works on. So if you have a choice, you always refer to an expert, not a specialist. So you can see there's different shades of meaning, and it's very important to recognize not only the denotation, but also the connotation of the words that you use. Now, when I moved to Ukraine, I was of the impression that the most important quality in someone's language ability was vocabulary. So I have always spent a lot of time teaching my students vocabulary. I would like all of my students to learn a handful of new words every week, and not just recognize them or identify them on a worksheet and match them, but actually be able to use them to write sentences using their new words. This is still a very important part of my teaching program. Since I've been here, I've added two more qualities that are very, very important. Number one is confidence. A person needs to have confidence to use their new language, and not be afraid of making mistakes. We only learn by making mistakes. If you never make mistakes, you really don't learn very much. You don't learn very quickly either. So I feel it's my job to give my students confidence, to not false confidence. I'm not going to say you're great if you're not great, but to improve your English over time and to make sure you know that your English is getting better, to make you feel more secure in your English language skills. Third, the third quality that I'm looking for from my students is commitment. I'm really not interested in people who wish they could speak English, who hope to speak English someday, who dream of speaking English. No, I'm looking for students who are going to speak English. They've made a decision in their mind. I'm going to learn English, or I'm going to improve my English. I'm going to become fluent in English. All right. Now, this is what I look for from my students. Those who are committed, who are willing to give me 2 hours a week, who are willing to do homework on the days when we don't have class, who do not cancel classes. All right, so in short, I believe I'm a very qualified teacher. I've given you reasons why I believe I'm qualified, and I've also tried to give you a little bit of taste of my personality and how I teach and what I'm looking for in my students. What do you get if you take classes from me? Number one, you get a qualified, motivated, experienced teacher. Number two, you will get all the materials that you need. You don't have to buy anything. I've got electronic books from pre-intermediate up to advanced. I've got, because I teach students from pre-intermediate to advanced. Many of my students actually are English teachers. Some people want classes just so they can pass a test, the IELTS test, for example. I've got materials for the IELTS test and for other tests. Let me tell you this. Every single student that I have tutored for a test has gone on to pass the test. So again, I believe I'm very qualified. One final question for you is there a difference between professional and qualified? I mean, they both have positive connotations, right? Generally speaking. All right. Now, many people would look at me and say, oh, he doesn't look very professional. And that's true, because I don't want to wear a tie and a suit. I just want to be comfortable. I wear comfortable clothes. All right. Now, some people want a teacher who looks or acts more professional than me. And that's great. That's fine. It's whatever makes you happy. So you probably don't want me to be your teacher. Other people are looking for a teacher that you just connect with. Some of you watching this video will think that, hey, I'd like to have classes with Jonathan. I would like to learn with Jonathan. So the last thing I want to tell you is that I would like to give everyone a chance to meet me and have a class with me without any large commitment. So my first class is either completely free or at a dramatic discount, because I don't want you to worry about that. I want you to spend an hour with me, let me assess your English, and we'll talk, and then you'll decide if you'd like me, and I'll decide if I want you. This might surprise some of you, but I do not teach everyone who wants me to be their teacher. I told you what I'm looking for. I need motivated students. If someone says, yeah, I'd like to have classes with you, an hour a week, I might not take that student, because if you only study for 1 hour a week, your English really doesn't get much better. All right, so I want us to have one class where we can check each other out, and then we'll decide from there if we're going to continue in a teacher-student relationship. So thank you. This went on much longer than I wanted it to, but gives you a chance to form an opinion about me and my teaching style. If you are interested, follow the instructions to get in touch with me, and we'll schedule a class. All right, thank you. Whether you work with me or not, good luck in your studies. I have tremendous respect for anyone who can speak 2 or more languages. So Good luck. Hopefully, I can help you. Bye-bye.